I'm Sarah Martin. I actually am an adjunct instructor in the Criminal Justice Department, and I've known our esteemed presenters for several years in various capacities. But I thought it was pretty appropriate to have somebody from the Criminal Justice Department facilitate this particular workshop. So now I will read all about them. You guys can hear all about them before we get started. So Fred, prior to coming to Hudson Valley in 2007, Fred was with the Albany Police Department for 20 years. Among his many duties, he was very much involved with crime prevention. That's how I knew him. Especially with the college-age population. During his time at Hudson Valley, he has continued to stress prevention, and these presentations are informative and important to enhance overall awareness of important issues facing colleges throughout the country. And next we have Terry. Terry has been a part-time peace officer for Hudson Valley for about 5 years and recently joined us in a full-time capacity after his retirement as a captain in the Troy Police Department. He also serves as town justice in the town of Brunswick, which I didn't know until I read this. And his overall police experience and judicial knowledge will contribute greatly as we make these presentations available throughout the campus community. So here's Fred.
Sarah, thank you so much. And I have the pleasure of also introducing Dr. Alex Popovics here, our Vice President here for Enrollment Management and all that stuff in your title there. And Alex and I, you know, when I look back on my police career, we always used to talk about partnerships within the community. And when I came over here, you talk about the partnerships you develop within our own college community. And Alex and I have been doing stuff together now. I'm here almost 8 years. You've been here a little bit longer than me. Alex has been here 10 years. And we, frequently, deal with a lot of different matters on a daily basis, and we've worked together very well. And when this whole evolution of the sexual assault prevention and safety came about, through the State University as well as the private colleges this past year, it was quite an evolution. It kept changing on us, like from week to week, month to month, since 2014, more or less, right? Almost going into a couple of years for this. So, and we did the best we could with our, our group of staff here on campus to keep up with some of these important points. And I would venture to say that some of this stuff may still change as this evolves there. But it's important, really important stuff for our students and our community here. So we're going to give you the basics and overview for this, part of the presentation. Of course, being ambitious as I am, the second part of our presentation will have to do with emergency preparedness, especially about active shooters. So I'm going to be breaking this up into two kind of different but important topics today. So, all right, so with the sexual assault safety and awareness. Basically, this stuff came out, the emphasis on all these points we're going to make today came out a couple of years ago, and the State University especially pronounced all these requirements to the state colleges and the community colleges. And then through the leadership of Governor Cuomo this past year, or earlier, I should say last year, it also now applies to the private college as well. So just to, touch base some important points there. It all stems from one of the original federal acts that were passed years ago, the Violence Against Women Act. You'll frequently also hear it referred to under Title IX, and that Title IX, federal code basically refers to the fact that, you can't discriminate against individuals because of race, sexual preference, and all those important points there. And in this case here, the sexual preference is the overriding point here that brings it to a Title IX case. So you'll hear that Title IX being referenced, the Violence Against Women Act. These are federal laws that we're complying with. Dr. Popovics.
A lot of times you'll just hear VAWA.
VAWA.
Rather than the Violence Against Women Act.
Right, VAWA, Violence Against Women Act. Correct, thank you. This is all the stuff we've learned in the past couple of years. One of the important points when it comes to, engaging in sexual activity or intercourse, the point they're trying to make to the campus populations, the students in particular, is you have to have consent. Consent has to be clear, unambiguous. Basically, yes is yes, no is no. And they want this point repeated constantly in terms of the students to impress upon them that this is the law of the land when it comes to having consensual, sexual relations. And there's a lot of times there are some ambiguities here, and they're trying to reference some of them here. And some of the ones they mention here, definition of consent does not vary based upon sexual orientation, gender, etc. The other point that's important here too is if the sexual activity is going on, person can change their mind. I changed my mind. You must stop. And again, a lot of us think about this in terms of the students that we serve, and you say to yourself, do they really communicate, in that manner in terms of these situations? Well, the point that's going on now throughout the state and the country to a certain extent is we're trying to get students to think that way. We're trying to get young adults to think that way. And I think it'll be a continuing challenge, but we're trying the best we can through all these laws. Incapacitation. You can't give consent when somebody is incapacitated. What are some ways of being incapacitated? Most of us would be most familiar with what? If you're abusing alcohol or drugs, you're incapacitated. You can't have sexual intercourse there. That's considered a rape. And as retired Captain Buchanan will agree with me, that's clearly in the penal law in terms of not have... Right, exactly the age. That's another one. And also the ones regarding some of the mental awareness. What am I thinking of? What's the term for mental incapacity as well, too. So there are a lot of situations when, incapacitation occurs and you cannot, have, consensual intercourse under those circumstances. And also they refer to any coercion, intimidation, force, or threat of harm. That's basically the definition of rape in our penal law. If you're being coerced or threatened or whatever, hey, that's first-degree rape. Important point here is these factors certainly apply to our own hearings here on campus, but very much in terms of in the penal law and the charges that will go along with an individual if they wish to make criminal charges here. Again, the policy statements, the health and safety of every student, state university, and community colleges of utmost importance. They're really, trying to emphasize this as much as possible. We've seen this, throughout all the different publications. We also recognize that as part of this, when students are involved in some of these incidents, they may be under the influence of alcohol or drugs or whatever the case may be. And what this is saying is that in terms of our rules and regulations and at the college, we would be willing to give, how would you say, immunity possibly, as a good way of describing it, to a student, even if they were under the influence, for reporting a sexual assault. So let's say they're present where someone else is getting assaulted, and many times the students, they don't want to report it because, oh no, I don't want to get in trouble. I was at that underage party too, or something like that. Well, what the policies are saying and what we're reminding students is that, hey, you can report it. You can report it to us and you won't get in trouble. We want to encourage students to report these incidents. So that's very important as well too, and that all comes under these recent changes. If an incident occurs, the students have a variety of different ways of pursuing this. They can confidentially report the incident to one of the following college officials. I'll defer to Dr. Popovich here on this one part here, because he really wants to emphasize a good point here.
How this affects you, it affects all of us. No one in this room is a confidential source, but we can be a private source. So if a student comes to you and shares with you something happened to them, you are obliged to let me know as the Title IX officer. We're required to do that. If it has to do with a student and an employee, then you must report that to Mr. Ogden. But if it's student to student, you let me know.
Mr. Ogden being in our human resources
Yes.
office.
If a student comes up to you and you feel that that student may be reporting a sexual harassment type of complaint or wants to discuss that with you, of course, the first thing we want to do is to make sure that we address the needs of the student. However, if you feel that the student is going to tell you something, and sometimes that's hard to discern, you should tell the student, I'm concerned about what you might tell me, but if you tell me, I am obliged to let the Title IX officer know. If you would rather keep this confidential at this time, please see a licensed counselor in our counseling center or see Salon George, our campus chaplain.
And they're the ones that can maintain
They can maintain confidentiality unless there is some drastic situation where they think that the incident, if not reported, could be a danger to other people on campus. Yes?
So, particularly on this campus, we have faculty who are licensed healthcare workers and licensed social workers who aren't working in the wellness center. Are they held to the same confidentiality as with somebody working in the wellness center?
At this point, I would say no. You would want the student to go there and then follow through our regular process at the institution. Okay, all right? So you may, if someone tells you, become more involved in a situation than you would want to be. So first of all, we are concerned about the student. And if the student tells you, let me know and I will follow through. Even if you hear a student talking about something, about another student, you're required to let me know, and then I would follow up. So a student may not want to pursue something, but if I hear the name of the person who is being accused, I will investigate. And I will call that student in, and I will pursue the matter and gather as much information as possible. Any questions regarding that? It's very difficult because someone might come up to you, confide in you, without you realizing the direction they're going. You might notice that a student is not feeling very good that day, might be acting differently than they usually do. If you suspect it's something that has to do with sexual harassment, then let that student know. I think something might be bothering you. If it has to do with an assault or something, I can guide you to a person who could help you and keep it confidential. Otherwise, I have to report it.
Does it matter whether the alleged incident took place on campus or off campus?
No, it does not matter. We investigate all of these situations, and probably there might be more in the fall of 2017 when we have resident halls. So there might be situations that will increase.
Is there a statute of limitations?
No.
My daughter was sexually assaulted at her college, a small liberal arts college in Connecticut, and then she went to study abroad. The statute of limitations was running out when she was studying abroad.
That's under the penal law, under the criminal statute of limitations,
She had
right?
contact from Europe and said, hey, I do want to pursue it, and so that was a
With the
big
college, we would pursue it as best as we could. We don't have any such.
Right. We advise-
Criminally.
Each semester at census date, the president sends out a Bill of Rights to all of our students. And it describes what we're responsible to do in order to help them. So every semester, this goes out to all our students via email. And that's all our students, whether credit or non-credit.
Let's see, okay, all right, so this is where we're at. And also, remember, when we're talking about these types of incidents, sexual assault or harassment, domestic violence, relationship violence, stalking, all that stuff kind of comes under this umbrella, so just be aware of that. Yeah, that the whole social media thing brings in so many other variables, but we would try to do the best we could with that. Many times that is a harassment that goes on there, and we have investigated those. So,
Those
and we'll
are
be
quite
alert to them.
frequent.
Yeah,
And we
Yep.
also have domestic
domestic,
harassment.
right,
Those are
domestic
the things
violence
that
with the
we-
boyfriend, girlfriend.
Yes?
Just because you investigate here at the college doesn't conclude that this would be actually a criminal case.
Well, that's my next slide. My next slide. My next slide. Question here first.
Who are we reporting to, like, from dental hygiene?
Right.
Students or female students?
Right. Yep.
Patient, student.
Right. Well, again, under the circumstances of the college, you know, we want you to report it to Dr. Popovics. So. All right, and then yeah, what are the options for? Hold on a second. Did I advance the slide properly? No. Okay. Let's see here. Okay, so there obviously are options there. You know, the victims can report sexual assault to law enforcement. They can just report, they may choose not to report to law enforcement. They may report it to public safety and Dr. Popovics. They may choose not to report to either. They may just seek the counseling from our wellness center. And that's another important point to make here, is that part of all the stuff here requires us to have many resources for our students. And indeed we do. The wellness center is a great opportunity.
We let them know where they could go, and we also tell them where they could receive help at the local hospitals, and we give them the opportunity, or we share with them, that they could report this to the police and handle it that way. So we let them know. It doesn't, and we could have 2 investigations going on. We could have the police going, and they could go to the court system, and we also handle it internally. And the results of those could be completely different.
Another great resource that we have here, we participate in the county sexual assault response teams. As a matter of fact, one of my officers sitting in the back, Officer Tom Towsley, wave to everybody. He's trying to hide back there, but he's one of my representatives to that group, and they meet regularly, and they're a tremendous resource. And God forbid an incident were to happen here on campus, they can help us out quite a bit in terms of being another option available to our students. Let's see here. Oh, a couple of things here too about, you know, how we would deal with this on campus. You know, we'd be concerned about the safety of the students. So we could, Dr. Popovics could give what we call a no contact order against the person who's accused, that they would not have any contact with the victim at all in terms of the campus situation. And Dr. Popovics would tailor that according to the individual situation. You may suspend the individual, who knows, depending on what's going on. So that's an option. And also at the criminal level, Captain Buchanan, just offer how we get orders of protection through the courts.
Just a little bit on, talk about simultaneous investigations. It can also be in family court at the same time, because the definition of what is a family member can be a former boyfriend, former girlfriend, someone with whom you live. So there could be a criminal family court and college investigation at the same time. And the threshold for each of them is a little bit different. In the criminal, obviously, it's reasonable doubt. With Dr. Popovics, it's a preponderance of the evidence. So it's a little bit of a different kind of a standard here. There could be a very serious rules violation within the college that might not rise to the level, or could rise to the level, but you might be an unsuccessful criminal prosecution, but yet have it's expelled from the college. With respect to that, orders of protection are only issued from a court when there is some kind of actual charges being brought. Family court's a lot easier to get one. You can say I'm fearful, and they'll most likely give you one. In a criminal court, there actually has to be a complaint made and an arrest occur before a criminal court will do an order of protection. There's sometimes a misunderstanding that you can just routinely get one, and they make the threshold for that a little bit high, because they don't want to just be giving them out. Otherwise, everybody would have one, just because they were simply annoyed by them. But Dr. Popovics can issue what amounts to an order of protection within the college, which is a kind of a stay-away order that they can't be near one another within the college community.
If you would pass that to Dr. Popovics, you'll emphasize the other point that we make there regarding
Yeah, many times we have a student change classes. If a student feels uncomfortable with another individual, we work with the chairs to have that student be removed from the same class that the other person is in. How does Title IX investigation and code of conduct different from our regular code of conduct? Usually a student comes into me, I do an investigation with Dr. Aliberti and his staff, and we offer the individual a sanction. Sanction may be suspension, it may be an apology, it may be volunteer work. In Title IX, and if they refuse that, then they go and call for a review board hearing. And a review board hearing consists of another student, a faculty member, and a staff member. And I present my case, and the student presents his or her case, and a decision is made. Title IX is different because throughout that review board hearing, both parties could be present and both of their advisors could be present. So everyone will hear what the other individual has to say. In a regular code of conduct, one person is in there, presents it to the review board, and then the next person comes in and presents it to the review board. So Title IX requires that both individuals be present with their advisors throughout the review board hearing. Also, it is now state education law, and I want to report, and I'll read it directly from state education law, how this needs to be put on a student's transcript. This is totally different, and we will begin doing this as soon as the Board of Trustees gets this information, although we have to do it because it's education law. But we're required to do this by January of this year. Yeah, yeah. And it says, institution shall make a notation on the transcripts of students found responsible after a conduct process that they were, and this is what would go on their transcript, suspended after a finding of responsibility for a code of conduct violation. If they were suspended, that goes on. If they were expelled, it would say expelled after a finding of responsibility for a code of conduct violation. For a respondent who withdraws from the institution while the conduct charges are pending and declines to complete the disciplinary process, institutions shall make a notation on the transcript they withdrew with conduct charges pending.
Tell me the section of the law, please.
Pardon me?
Could you give me the section of the law?
Yeah, it's,
It should be right on the page.
yeah, it's line 49 to 56.
The law in the Senate is, let's see, Section 1 Education Law 129B. 129B, and that would be, it seems like it's, can't pick out the section, Section 6 possibly.
Yeah.
So that's all the stuff that's been changed. Hey, one of the
Okay,
other
there's still
point to make.
a little
you still
more.
You got something else?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
This is exciting stuff.
Exciting
Okay,
stuff.
all right, all right. All right. If a student is suspended, and this is put on their transcript, it has to stay on there at least a year. Then it can be removed. If they're expelled, it will always be on their transcript. So this has to do with violence as well as Title IX.
Is it automatically removed, or does the student have to request it?
It doesn't say here. It says it shall not be removed prior to 1 year after conclusion of the suspension.
Does the college have a policy on
No, it's going to be put in our catalog, okay? And it has to be there by July of this year, okay? I think the student would probably want it removed, okay? But we'll have to discuss that. I would think it would be removed after a year, unless they're expelled, then it would be there forever. Okay, and that if something happens and the finding was found to be inaccurate, if a finding of responsibility is vacated for any reason, any such transcript notation shall be removed. Okay.
And Alex, it's important to emphasize, this stuff has all been passed down to us in the past months. It's been tough for us to even keep up with this, so we're doing the best we can. Dr. Popovich and the college, and I think all the colleges in the state are trying to do the best they can. I just want to show a quick video to kind of end this part of the presentation, and then I'll take some more questions. I just want to get to this one video. We present this stuff to the students in the college forums. I did about 40 of those myself, and we also do other whatever types of forums we can, different kinds of meetings to present. And here, Sandra McCarthy put together a good video that summarizes all of this, and we're going to just present it right now. So,
safety and welfare of students at Hudson Valley is our primary concern, and federal and state legislation guides our policies regarding sexual assault, domestic violence, dating violence, and harassment. It's important to know that consent to sexual activity is a clear, unambiguous, knowing, informed, and voluntary agreement between all participants to engage in sexual activity. Consent is active, not passive. Silence or lack of resistance cannot be interpreted as consent. Also, consent cannot be given if a person is under the influence of drugs or alcohol. If you are the victim of domestic violence, dating violence, stalking, or sexual assault, there are special services and rights available to you on campus. Please do not hesitate to ask for help. You may contact Public Safety at 629-7210 or local law enforcement by calling 911. If you wish to speak to someone confidentially, our Center for Counseling, the Health Services Office, or campus ministry are confidential resources for you. If you are a witness to a sexual assault or an incident of domestic violence or dating violence, or if you witness any fellow student in danger, please ask for help or intervene to the degree you feel safe. Hudson Valley Community College does have an amnesty policy for those who report inappropriate behavior. All students, regardless of gender, ethnicity, race, age, sexual orientation, or any other unique or special feature, should feel safe and understand their rights at Hudson Valley.
We're required to give a presentation to all student leaders, and we define that, the college can define that, and we have that as members of the Student Senate who are in the leadership board, as well as all student athletes. And we need to make sure that even before a student competes in an intercollegiate activity, that they receive this training. Otherwise, they cannot participate. Also, we're starting this year to give bystander training. And Deanne Martocci and Lewis Copeland are involved in a series of 3 different times where students could come and learn how to be a good bystander, how to distract individuals who may be in the process of being assaulted or harassed, and how to be a good bystander and not put themselves in any danger or risk.
I just had a question about the faculty notification. I know the faculty, at least I at some point had gotten an email about some of the Title IX things and that information, but that video I had also seen before. I didn't know whether the faculty had been made aware of where to watch that video or whether there was something sent out to all the faculty about potential responsibilities, because everybody in here is hearing it, but this is only 20-some people. So,
Sure. What I had shared about
staff, even not just
Well, what I had shared about the difference between confidentiality and privacy, we're trying to get something together. Here's a rough draft that we'll put in the envelopes with the checks so that everyone can receive this, to know that they're required to report instances that students share with them, and the difference between becoming more involved or referring it off to a confidential source. So that's what we're trying to get together. So this is a rough draft of what we have. Unfortunately, it's a little bigger than the envelope that it would come in. So we're trying to fix that up.
Really quickly, is the reporting, how is the reporting done to you? Is it done through email? Is it done through a form? Like, how would we as faculty get that information to you confidentially?
You could either send an email directly to me, come to the office, or any way that you would let me know. It's best to have it in an email or just come to my office directly. The most important thing is that you let me know. And then
If it's reported to public safety, we in turn let
Yeah.
Alex know.
Now, usually there are incident reports that you fill out at the public safety office, but there's no need to wait. If it's a weekend, you find out in the evening somehow, just send an email to me and I'll get on it right away.
Okay, there's a lot there. Just as with my next presentation, we want to offer these types of talks to a variety of different groups on campus. So, for example, if a department chair from one of the academic areas wants to have us come over and do a nice talk on this, as well as some of this other stuff we're going to present, we'll be available for that. Terry works a lot of evenings. He's been doing a lot of evening presentations. He's done some of the classes as well there too. So we want to present the stuff as much as possible in whatever different ways we can. This has all been evolving this past year, so now we're at the point we're trying to do the best we can to get that investigation.
Want us to come to your class, shoot Fred an email.
Yep. And that's true even for this next part of our presentation on emergency preparedness and active shooter. Just before I get to my next topic here on emergency preparedness, active shooter, I just wanted to share with you that at our website, we've got all kinds of information. If you look under public safety there, crime prevention, emergency information procedures, ID cards, all that stuff. And especially when it comes to we're going to be talking about the emergency preparedness. On that part of the page, we've got a lot of different important points that are made there. We talk about the New York alert system that the campus uses. There is information about the active shooter and the medical emergency. So we've got a lot of that information online too. I just wanted to make you guys aware of that. So, all right. And this past year, throughout the country, I hate to say it, but the world has changed to a certain degree there. We've heard so much about, these crazy acts of violence, the shootings. When I first came here, Virginia Tech was on everybody's mind, and that was 2007, And between then and now, we'll talk about this shortly here, there have been many others. And a lot of people are always asking, Jesus, what can we do in these situations? And the answers aren't easy to give. The situations are so different, dynamic. So we thought we'd give a little overview for our campus population, faculty, staff, students, and just give some important safety points on that. They don't apply to everyone, absolutely. You'll see the video that we show here shows like an office situation, but many of those points can be tailored to everybody's situation. So we wanted to at least give some bit of information, a little bit of overview, because people were asking for it. And we know Terry and I, we visited one of our colleagues over at Russell Sage there, and they're doing a lot of these presentations to their staff. And I think it's going on throughout the country, especially in the college environment. So here's our attempt at it. It's a work in progress. We just started doing this, and again, it'll be available to whatever entities, different types of meetings that we can have on campus. What is an active shooter? It's the worst form of an intruder that you can have on campus. We think about sometimes what are some of our typical intruders, you know, and it doesn't happen on a daily basis, but we occasionally get someone who doesn't belong on campus, a trespasser, or we get a burglar or somebody that's stealing from an office or something, or we may get, you know, a vehicle or someone that doesn't have anything to do on campus and they're here. So they're intruders, but the worst form of this intruder is someone who's coming to campus that's armed and wants to kill people. And that's, you know, when you look at the history of this, and one of the things too, and I had mentioned Virginia Tech, but, you know, back in 1966, you know, not that we all can think about 1966, but, you know, this happened over at the University of Texas, where this sniper got up on a tower there and started shooting at students, and what did he killed 15, wounded 30. When I was researching this here, the officer, the University of Texas officer that climbed up to the top of this tower, because I don't think it had any elevator or whatever, something like that. It took him a while to get there. He just passed away a few years ago, and he regretted that he couldn't get up there quick enough to save more people. He wound up engaging him with his own weapon and killing the guy that was responsible for this. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And then, of course, it ranges to the Virginia Tech incident, which, you know, again, crazy incident, you know, at a college situation. You know, one of the ones that I didn't put here, and Terry, we got to add this on there because it came up the other night. When I was on the Albany PD, yeah, I was on the SWAT team, believe it or not. Back then, I was a little bit more trim and in shape, but 94 or 95, I can't remember exactly. A Tortorici incident at the State University at Albany. Does anybody remember that? He broke into a lecture center, took hostages, had a rifle, and the university didn't have a SWAT team then. They called us, Albany, to respond. And I was right outside the door there with my gun, ready to go after this guy. And it turned out that once he started shooting, other officers got in before we got in and were able to capture him. That was crazy. That was scary. So I forget that, but even in our own local situation, we've had some of those incidents, even though it's been some time ago. But I know. He's always telling me to talk about that, and it was scary, even for me, believe it or not. I'll never forget that. But you know, again, we've seen more of these. I mean, here's some of the New York Times headlines here. Yeah, these individuals want to kill people. They come in to a confined area. They've got firearms. No pattern to the selection of their victims. They're just doing it randomly. In some of these cases, there's slight differences. Like I think of the Tortorici incident, he was mentally ill. He had some kind of issue. He didn't shoot and kill everybody in the room. He just took them hostage. So sometimes you'll see that. The criminals will do that as well. If a criminal is fleeing a robbery incident or something like that, he may just take hostages. You know, in a bank situation, I'm thinking, what is the movie there? Dog Day Afternoon, when they took all the hostages inside the bank there, you know, they weren't just killing everybody right away. Sarah.
Another thing that I think of when I look at this particular slide is, to go back to what we were talking about before, is domestic violence and stalking, and potential active shooters.
Right, yeah. I'm going to bring the mic to.
Between those two, even when you look at workplace violence, which we're not necessarily talking about, most workplace violence is a disgruntled former employee. Right. But a lot of workplace violence ends up being domestic violence and collateral damage. Right. You know, the person comes there looking for their intended victim, and then other people get in the way.
And the worst case scenario of what you've just described would be this active shooter coming in there
right.
to shoot up his girlfriend's office or whatever the case may be because he had a grudge or whatever against him. Good point. It's good to have a criminal justice person. And we've got a few here, so you know. And then obviously what we've seen recently here, you know, the terrorist situation, Paris recently, San Bernardino, and all that stuff that's going on now with the trying to get into the cell phone, the iPhone, and you know all the controversy going on with that. So that I'm sure will evolve. These shootings, you know, they don't end, sadly, until, you know, what do we say, Terry? Until the guys with guns show up. They don't end until the good guys with the guns show up, sadly. A lot of these individuals killed themselves before the end of the incident. In the San Bernardino case, they did fight with the police. They did engage the police away from the incident, so there are exceptions. The profiles, they're saying mostly white males in some of these cases there. The most horrifying picture that I've seen, and I use it here, is that that one kid from that Connecticut incident there, and what he did at that elementary school. I mean, it was hard for me to even think about that at the time, when that occurred there. What are our responses these days to these incidents? Our police response has evolved a bit too. Before I retired, which was 7, 8 years ago from Albany PD, we were doing active shooter training because not only from Virginia Tech, but from the Columbine incident in Colorado, the criticism was that the police took forever to set up their perimeter and their SWAT teams and all that, and while they were doing that, these guys were shooting people inside the school. So the whole philosophy changed right away. That was a good, excellent point to be made there. And now, the officers are arriving. They get together, a small group of 3 or 4 people, whatever they can, and they're going after wherever those shots are being fired. And they may step over victims. They may ignore victims in order to get to the guy or gal, whatever, that's doing the shooting. So, that's a kind of like an unusual awareness for us, but, they want to end the incident. The good guys with the guns want to end that incident. During an incident, you may hear gunfire. We're going to show a nice video that summarizes this. You may observe a person with a firearm. You may learn about this from others, from fellow people in offices through social media, right? I would imagine, God forbid there's an incident, the social media will be burning up with this stuff. We'll be trying to do what we can with our New York alert system and whatever notifications that we can. So you really just, have to be aware of that situation. Yes, sir?
Is there a campus-wide PA system?
We do, yeah. That's another option that we have. We may have many tools in the bucket, and we have the campus-wide PA system. We would do whatever we could with social media, email, the New York alert system. So that's a good point. So what they're telling us, hey, be prepared. What are your circumstances going to be in these individual situations? And you want to kind of psych yourself for this, is what they're saying. You'll see it when we show the video. One of the points they make is, if you're responsible for others, you want to help your fellow workers or fellow, faculty, staff, whatever it is. But if they don't want to be saved, then don't worry about saving them. Save yourselves. And what are our options? This is what it comes down to: run, hide, or fight. And I'm going to show this video here, which really kind of summarizes this nicely.
It may feel like just another day at the office, but occasionally, life feels more like an action movie than reality. The authorities are working hard to protect you and to protect our public spaces. But sometimes bad people do bad things. Their motivations are different. The warning signs may vary, but the devastating effects are the same. And unfortunately, you need to be prepared for the worst. If you were ever to find yourself in the middle of an active shooter event, your survival may depend on whether or not you have a plan. The plan doesn't have to be complicated. There are 3 things you could do that make a difference: run, hide, fight. First and foremost, If you can get out, do. Always try and escape or evacuate, even when others insist on staying. Encourage others to leave with you, but don't let them slow you down with indecision. Remember what's important, you, not your stuff. Leave your belongings behind and try to find a way to get out safely. Trying to get yourself out of harm's way needs to be your #1 priority.
Stop that guy! Stop that guy! Hey!
Once you are out of the line of fire, try to prevent others from walking into the danger zone and call 911.
Yes, we're to Washington. Help us!
You know, these situations are going to vary, especially in our campus. And one of the things that we're doing when we present this is we're going to look at, you know, for example, we're presenting over to the library staff later on today. So we're going to take a look at some areas. What are some good areas to escape or to hide from? So that's what our intent is as we make more of these presentations on campus here. And they give you some of these options here at this interlude. Sarah, yes?
My criminal justice hat and putting on my elementary school parent hat. Our elementary school recently was having discussions about this, and the three choices: run, hide, fight, where the federal government, the federal education department, is advocating run, hide, fight, whereas some of the state, even the state police and some of the law enforcement don't necessarily put the run in for the elementary school or even the high school population, the school population in general, where they do the shelter in place and the hide. So the run is almost removed. Are you going to talk about that from the college perspective, or? Okay. Yeah.
The important difference between with the shelter-in-place concept they're trying to get away from, again, it depends on where you are and what building you're in and the circumstance. In a college-type environment, office environment, that makes more sense. In an elementary school or high school environment, like my son went to LaSalle, or the elementary school, you can close those doors and let no one in. We don't have that option here. We don't have a building with two entrances where you say, this is where we're going, we're locking the door, the bad guy can't get in. We can't lock it down. Even if we had the technology to lock every door electronically, you're still going to have people coming in and out.
Right, so that's the important difference. At the elementary situation, they have limited spaces that can be secured better. So the philosophy there is going to be slightly different.
Share question.
The bigger issue is that you can't lock the classroom door.
Yes.
So,
And
seriously,
we're going to show you some possibilities there.
I have that discussion with my classroom where I'm like, you know what, something like that happens, we're going through the window, we'll try to do a
Yeah, that's a great point you made, is that this is not a formulaic response. Like when you have a fire drill, okay, you're in this door, you go out this building, you go out that. It's a very formulaic. This is, you can't be formulaic with this. You've got windows available. Even from the second floor, you could probably jump. Yeah, with the class I did, it's.
We want to look at individual situations. They'll show some of that here.
If you can't get out safely, you need to find a place to hide. Act quickly and quietly. Try to secure your hiding place the best you can. Turn out lights, and if possible, remember to lock doors. Silence your ringer and vibration mode on your cell phone. And if you can't find a safe room or closet, try to conceal yourself behind large objects that may protect you. Do your best to remain quiet and calm.
Cover is best. Cover meaning something you can physically get behind that would actually prevent the bullets or whatever from hitting you. And concealment would be if you're just hiding behind something. So obviously you can find a safer thing to hide behind to prevent the the shots from magically reaching you. It's better than concealment, but concealment's okay too.
The other day, and we noted that our classrooms had cinder block walls, which gives you some good cover.
As a last resort, if your life is at risk, whether you are alone or working together as a group, fight. Act with aggression. Improvise weapons. Disarm him. And commit to taking the shooter down, no matter what. Try to be aware of your environment. Always have an exit plan. Know that in an incident like this, victims are generally chosen randomly. The event is unpredictable and may evolve quickly. The first responders on the scene are not there to evacuate or tend to the injured. They are well trained and are there to stop the shooter. Your actions can make a difference for your safety and survival. Be aware and be prepared. And if you find yourself facing an active shooter, there are 3 key things you need to remember to survive. Run, hide, fight.
Yes, you have a few.
Again, I'm thinking about these situations, and so I'm wondering, they talk about silencing your phone, which is a great idea, but in order to keep some line of communication, could we create an emergency texting system whereas you're on campus, you're locked away somewhere, you see where the person is going, because you might hear, gunfire, you're not sure what direction it's coming from, and so have that open line where they're communicating with, whether it be you, Fred, or someone on duty to say, here's where I am, and here's what's going on, so they could feed that information to law enforcement in real time.
I think when they say turn the sounds off from your phone there, I think in an emergency situation in the ringers, you probably would want to have people texting or trying to send us messages, or you'd have people going on social media and stuff saying, he's over in the second floor Fitz, don't come out of the building, or whatever. We probably would see a lot of messaging going around. And certainly as much information as we got, we would also try to send that out with our messaging system, the New York Alert.
Yeah, but again, just having that, because I know for local PD, they have the non-emergency texting system where you're, more so for terrorism, you see something, you send them something.
Right.
To get their own.
We're looking at, the college is also looking at getting a newer version other than the New York Alert texting system. We are looking at maybe upgrading that. So that's a good point. It's something that we are looking at. I forget the name of it. We've been looking at a few of them. So that's certainly a good point.
Number 2, because my car was recently hit on campus, but again, I'm not quite sure it was hit within, regular hours. And so I was talking to an officer who told me that after 3 days or so, the surveillance tape get right or something like that. So, I don't know, if there's any way we could, save that information a bit longer than 3 days or something.
We have limited technology is a great thing, but there's limitations on technology. Some of our cameras save for about a week and a half to 10 days, some only 2 to 3 days. But we've got some good, we've been able to solve a lot of little incidents with the amount of memory we do have, but there are limitations because it's all computer-based and memory-based. So. Right, once we're made aware of it and we save it, yeah, once we actually save it, because once we get to it. And in my forum classes, I'm always telling students, you report an incident, report it promptly, because if you report it 2 weeks later, then the video may have been overwritten by then. So.
And finally, similar to the fire safety drills, maybe you wanted to build something around an active situation.
We're doing that. Yes, we're doing it. We're going to be doing it this spring. We're working on doing an active shooter drill. So we're working on it.
join force with, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah. Well, our local, yeah, we're working on that, and we've been, as a matter of fact, I got a meeting coming up next week. That's an excellent point. See, this has all been starting to evolve. You know, and there's one other important point there. We have our emergency preparedness committee, of which one of our faculty members is here. I'm going to have him talk about it right there and answer the question. at the same
Yeah,
time.
hi, I'm Robert Whitaker. You might know me as Sid. That's my nickname. So I'm the faculty member on the Emergency Preparedness Committee. And as Fred mentioned, there is, there is going to be a drill and some other activities coming up a little later in the semester. We are looking for faculty volunteers,
Yes.
by the way, to help
And
take part,
students.
participate
And
in
students.
this drill. So I'm going to have a little information on this at the Faculty Association meeting this coming Monday, next week. I was going to talk about it a little bit there, and then going to send out an email. So I would say just check your email, Shauna K. If you're interested in participating, then just respond to me and let me know.
Good. Thank you,
And
Sid.
that's
Thank
for
you.
everyone, actually. Anyone who'd like to take part in that.
Just really quickly, if there was an incident on our campus, if there was in the past, what responding law enforcement comes? Is it North Greenwich or Troy?
We have both. We have both. Both would respond.
And how quickly have they come in the past?
Well, they could come really quickly. You know, a couple of, was it a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, we had an incident where someone thought they saw a gun.
Okay.
I put out that little email, and when we reported that to the North Greenbush officers as well as our staff, they were there in minutes. I mean, we were at the parking, it was at the parking garage there, my staff, and they responded. It was amazing. We were all there. I said, wow, good response. And we were able to solve that case. It turned out it wasn't a gun, it was a rearview mirror, but still, it was good that that was reported. Yes,
Oh,
Ted?
on that with the response, frankly, it's going to vary. I mean, in that particular case where we thought we had the gun thing, they may have had, just from having done this, they may have had nothing going on.
Right.
And so they had 4 guys who stood
Something else
around.
going on.
If they've got something else going on, their response is going to be slow and limited. And with Troy, you've got 2 officers covering between Congress Street and here. Now, if this kind of situation happens, they're all coming.
Right.
Now, they're all might be
Sheriff, state police.
the sheriffs, everybody. So, but it could frankly be a little bit before they got here. Yeah.
I have a question. I think public safety does a good job.
Thank you.
I have a question. How many public safety officers are on campus at any given time? Probably during the busiest time of the year.
130.
During the day shift, we have most officers, many officers available during the day shift. We could have as many as 8 or 9 officers during the day shift. Some of our evening and night shifts, we have 3 or 4 officers, maybe 2 or 3 officers. Terry works a mix of both. So we've got some pretty good coverage during the peak times, especially during the daytime, during the week.
Thank you. My last question is,
Yes.
are there police officers on the Central Hudson Valley location? Where there's some facility?
Yeah, 175 Central Avenue, yeah,
Yeah.
Albany Police are there, and they'll be coming over there and taking care of things, you know. As well as other locations.
I wanted to speak to her about the communication. That's going to be a challenging thing in a real life event, because while you want to give out information as to where the shooter is, you're going to be getting multiple reports, some false, some true.
Managing the communication.
Managing communications is going to be difficult to try to verify, the correctness of it. We don't want to be sending people to their death.
Right.
When we had the incident remember Hudson or at Russell Sage back in maybe November. Remember that? That came in as officers responded to a hostile or a intruder,
like a burglar.
a burglar. One of the officers foolishly said when he heard a door close, "Hey, I think that was a gunshot." Well, everything cascaded from there. So now the SWAT team showed up, the ATF showed up, the FBI showed up. They closed classes for the day. RBI went on lockdown. I mean, all with false information. And then there was stuff on Twitter and people responding, 2 people have been shot. It got crazy.
Yeah, it got crazy.
Yeah.
There was all kinds of misinformation. So good point. Good point. Just to reiterate, I guess, some other points from the video there. Again, in all of our situations, you could improvise whether you're jumping out windows to escape or whether you're grabbing tables and chairs and fire extinguishers to attack him, or whether you're finding out localized hiding areas, as we'll do in the library and some other situations. Whatever we could do to, get out of that situation, you're going to do. And the point is, We just got to, get that into you guys mentally to think about it. Who would ever have thought that we would get to this point, after all these years here? An important point too is when the incident ends, you've seen this before there, as the officers are getting everybody out of the buildings, make sure they can see your hands, everybody's hands are up there, because during these critical times, they're not going to know who's the bad guy, and we got to be real careful with that in terms of making sure another armed individual escapes or possibly begins to shoot at us. And be careful with that too. Terry, tell the story about whether or not the coast is clear in these situations.
Yeah, when we saw this over at the Albany College of Pharmacy, they pointed out, sadly, that in the Virginia Tech situation, where some students were hiding, the shooter was in the hallway. The students shouted out, "Hey, is the coast clear?" And the shooter said, "Oh, yep, it's all good. Come on out," and then shot them. So
you want to make sure that the coast is
some of
clear.
the uniform.
Is there a uniformed officer? Are we getting messages through the alert system, whatever?
Yeah.
So, question.
Are any of our officers armed at all? We have no guns on campus at all. Am I right about that?
We don't, correct.
Would it make sense that a few well-trained, people who, like yourselves, I mean, you said it took minutes for them to get here for the last incident. In minutes, an awful lot can happen. And
Correct, yeah.
I'd feel more comfortable.
I think
I'd feel more comfortable.
our college administration has been thinking about that. Let me just answer that way. I think with all the stuff going on, they're beginning to take a look at that, yes. And that's been true throughout the country. My son is over at RIT there in Rochester, and we recently got an email from the president there saying that they're going to be hiring armed officers for that particular university. My daughter's over at Binghamton. Of course, as you know, the university police have been armed police officers for many years. So again, that discussion is going on. So. Yes.
This is a little off topic, but I'm wondering whether, like in the usual patrols that you do on campus, like through the campus buildings, do you use class schedules to determine where, people should be on campus?
Yeah, in terms of being aware of where people are. Yeah, we certainly do. Yeah, I mean, like for example, during certain times of the year, we know that, let's say, summer session, we know that there's mostly classes in the BTC or in Fitz or Braham, but we are alert to that. Terry works during the evening shift there. I know most of our evening classes are where Bulmer and Amstutz. We don't have, we try to be aware of where Lang, right? We certainly are aware of the class schedules. Yes.
Okay, so the question I have is, I do sometimes some weekend work, like on a Saturday, I would come in, but I'm not a scheduled class. I open up a lab when I feel students need me. So I don't usually call like public safety and say, "Hey, I'm here, just do a walk by every now and again."
We do. If you want, you can. We do get staff that call us regularly on the weekends. Yeah, we do get staff that regularly will call us. And sometimes if the buildings are locked down, you're forced to call us in order for us to let you into your office or whatever. So that's how we become aware of that too. Saturdays are pretty busy around here. Sundays we try to, a little bit more limited. But at Saturdays, yeah, we have lesser amounts of officers because there aren't as many people around. Unless there's special events going on, we have the basketball sectionals going on, so we have extra staff on for those events. Yeah, that was at Fitz, right? Yeah. So. Anything else? I know we kind of went through both of these presentations. Yes, Professor.
I've had incidents where some of your men and women come to my classroom and they want to speak with a student. What's the right protocol?
Yeah, Dr. Popovics and I, we would do that quite a bit when we have to summons students, and we usually try to catch them either before or after class. And unless it's something really serious, we really don't want to disturb classes as much as possible. We know at times that has happened, but I know I try to emphasize to the staff either right before or right after the class, unless there's some other urgent matter where we really have to get somebody right away.
Disciplinary letters or something?
Yeah, that's what it's referred to. Discipline. We usually get a lot of the disciplinary letters that Dr. Popovics wants delivered immediately to students. But again, we try to get them before or after.
Should I make the announcement or should I have you also?
Well, we try to do it right, you know, we try to grab them, you know, as low-key as possible, but sometimes if we're not familiar with the student, we don't know who he looks like, but sometimes we'll take you aside and say, hey, do you know, is this guy in your class or not? And then, you know, we try to do that unobtrusively as possible, but sometimes we know that they
Did you
can.
not have that experience? Is that-
Yeah.
Or a lot of
Did you
times,
not have that experience?
leave the third or fourth class and go to try to catch this kid, so.
Right, yeah.
A lot of times, when folks try to get there in the middle of class, because we get there, we leave the kids there late, or he leaves early, or.
Right, we've had experiences where they're leaving early or the professor lets their class out earlier sometimes, so it depends on, you know, the seriousness of the incident, so. Yes?
How do you envision the internal loudspeaker system to be used?
We test them regularly, and depending on if a situation arose, let's say we were aware that it was in FITS, we would be able to dial up the FITS speaker system and give an announcement. Let's say we were aware of there was somebody on the 3rd floor. We would say, active shooter on the 3rd floor, remain in your classrooms, or, if we had some other message to say, 1st floor, please evacuate, listen to the directions of officers, It would depend on the individual situation.
Right, and is that going to be part of the training for the faculty, that they would be alert to listen for direction?
Yeah, it's more like an awareness. I mean, we've been testing, we test the speakers regularly. I think it's just be aware that the speakers are out there, and we haven't come up with any specific, training in terms of that, but it's more an awareness that, we try to give out instructions as best as possible. But again, bear in mind, in one of these situations, it would be so hectic, we wouldn't want to give out misinformation as well, too. So we might not say anything at all, or we might just text some information, and hope that everybody was on their New York alert system.
There's
Or
gaps in the speakers when we tested the science building.
Right, yeah.
Or in the building.
Right, we're working on-
Not maybe
yeah.
over there, but it's very evident in the hall.
Right.
And it's in none of the classrooms.
Yeah, the classroom.
Everybody's hearing it, including the
Yeah.
potential active shooter.
Right, exactly. So it's not an absolutely perfect system. We're working on improving it. But again, it's just one tool amongst all the many different tools that we would use in terms of communicating. All right, I know we're getting close to the end here. Any other comments or questions? One of the things that Dr. Popovics brought also in terms of the sexual awareness, we've got some posters if some of you want to bring those back to your classroom. And then also, we gave out those little cards and everybody's checks a few months ago, I believe, about active shooter. I have more here if anybody's interested. So I want to thank you for your attention here. Both of these presentations are works in progress. We're going to try to improve them as best as we can. And again, we appreciate everybody, staying involved and being aware and alert and thinking about prevention. Thank you.